Well, thank you all for having us here. Meeting Dr. Willers was a moment of serendipity through a mentor of mine. As she said, I've started med school this year, and it's just been amazing. We're from up north in Connecticut, and so to come down here to Nashville, I would say we definitely fell in love with it. My first night was a big country concert, and we're very happy about it. We just have such a welcoming community, so thank you for having us. I think to start, I'll let Izzy read her story, and then I can tell you a little bit about mine. But I think the theme that we wanted to harp on today, as you know, people have been going through, either myself recently through college, Izzy going through it right now, is a lot of these events about how to handle life have to do with, you know, this is the 5 ways to do things, and if you do those things, things are going to work out. And when Liz and I were talking about this event, what we really wanted to focus on was the practicality of it's much harder when you get there. And so what we want to do, Izzy and I, is be as vulnerable as we can with you all about the things we tried to implement when things got hard, how it was messy, and then how we learned eventually to trust and find resilience, community, and things like that, so that it's much more real for you guys. So I'll let Izzy go first.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
To start off with my story and my experience my freshman year of college. So I definitely came into college thinking that I had kind of already done the hard part. I'd struggled with anxiety earlier in my high school career, but by my senior year, I felt like I had truly stabilized. I had a close knit group of best friends, many of whom I knew since I was in elementary school. I was captain of 2 teams, I was deeply involved in my church, and I thought I had done the work on myself and figured out who I was, and I felt very, very mentally strong because of it. And honestly, I felt like I was kind of unshakable. And that belief made it all more disorienting for me when things did start to shake when I went to school. I always cared deeply about mental health. Even in high school, I was part of peer support programs like Ready, which Jackson started, because I wanted to help people who had felt the same way I did during my freshman and sophomore years of high school. And that passion only deepened when I saw how many people from my hometown were suffering in silence. Mental health was always something that people didn't talk about until it was too late. I had classmates and many kids from the town over from me who took their own lives, and it was constantly devastating our community. And then this past fall, while I was at Georgetown, a boy from my high school passed away by suicide. And even though I was 300 miles away, it really shook me. I sat down and ended up writing a long letter to my former principal, and I poured my heart out. And just to read a quote from it, I said to him, "I firmly believe that today's students are missing deep emotional connections with their peers, teachers, and even friends. A pervasive stigma has made us all believe that our struggles, achievements, and stories are not worth sharing, and this has cultivated an environment of unrealistic expectation. Love needs to extend beyond moments of loss. Every student deserves to feel like they belong, to feel valued and authentically seen, and to be empowered with the skill to rely on others for support, not just after tragedy strikes, but every day." And I meant every word of that email, but the truth was, at the same time, I was struggling too. So what I really believe is that real belonging doesn't come from performing, it comes from patience, from being brave enough to sit in that in-between, and from letting go of the script that you thought your life would follow, and meeting people where they are. The more that I had stopped trying to control people in my experience, the more that I felt like I could be myself, and the happier that I was in school.
Right. Well, so what's, I think, a common theme for Izzy and I, and I'll just bridge into my story here. Our parents, my mom's sitting in the back right up there, they very much, when we were being raised, taught us the lesson like giving builds character like nothing else can. And for Izzy and I and my little brother Harry, I think getting outside of ourselves has been the healing grace that has led to the happiness that we now have as adults. Things are still hard. And so I'll start telling my story, and I want you guys to pay attention to that theme, if you can. So, my freshman year, I came into UVA. UVA, University of Virginia, was my dad's alma mater. I grew up wearing UVA jerseys, going to games. It was pretty much a dream come true, and get to follow after my dad. So when I got there freshman year, I actually ended up being able to hang a little bit more than I had expected coming in. Had a great freshman year, and got very motivated sophomore year. I worked out a little too hard, didn't take care of my body, and then I ended up tearing my hamstring my sophomore year. And through a cycle of injury and re-injury, I basically got to a point where I felt completely helpless. Helpless to have any hope in getting back to the field, but mostly helpless in being able to contribute to the people and the causes that I care most about. I had made best friends on the team, and we're starting to play really well, and I feel completely inept on the sideline. And so one day, I called my mom about this, and she asked if I had talked to anybody. And I was very, very stubborn. I had never really talked to anybody about my feelings, never really digested everything. My dad was kind of a hero for me, and to me, it felt like him and all the people I looked up to had it all together. And so that's what I had to do. I had to hold it all together. Things were messy, but man up and figure it out. So she suggested, as an amazing mother that she is, that I go see the sports psychologist. And so I went, sat down in a little leather chair, and I sat with a guy named Dr. Freeman, Jason Freeman, and we talked for about an hour. And I remember nearly crying coming out, and definitely crying when I told my mom how amazing it was. And so then I walked into the training room, and I was late to training, which I had been with pre-med and everything. Obviously, schedule was very difficult, and got an earful from my coach. And rightfully so, I had been late, but kind of hit a breaking point where I basically felt like I had figured it all out after that meeting, and then I couldn't win. And so I ended up crying on the phone with my college coach, feeling completely embarrassed and inept and broken. And then I called my brother, and my little brother, right between me and Izzy and I, he listened to me and he said, "Jackson, you've tried your whole life to be so great at so many things. You don't realize that we love you for who you already are." Essentially saying, dude, no amount of achievement, no amount of trying hard, no amount of this is going to fix the hole in your heart. You need to learn to love yourself, and you need to learn to let us love you. And so I ended up in the training room about a week later seeing a friend of mine. Her name was Molly, and she's part of the program that Izzy and I ended up starting. And I saw a look on her face while she was working out that was basically the same one. This look of, gotta hold it all together, fight through the pain, put a smile on your face. And I walked by her and I asked her how she was doing. And she said the same thing she always does. "I'm doing well, how are you?" And I said, "Molly, how are you really doing?" And she broke down. She said, "Jackson, I've got this injury, it's called compartment syndrome in my calves. I think my career might be over." And I said, "How weird is it that we walk by each other every day? We've sat here in this training room, grueling hours after hours, trying to get work done in rehab, exhausted, and we've been going through the same exact thing, and we haven't talked about it once." And so we ended up going and speaking to some older students about that and saying, there's got to be a way to find a space for young people to talk and to really talk and talk vulnerably through this experience, which just seems impossible. And so the presidents of this organization called Student Athlete Mentors at UVA, they loved it. So we got together as a council, and one night, late at night, we basically rented out a whole cabin and got together and talked. And I ended up telling them about my anxiety and things like that. And this pin dropped, and then the president of the organization next to me said, "Jackson, I haven't told anybody this, but none of you know this, but I'm afraid of my own brain. She's had these concussions for a while, she had these mood swings, and I feel exactly like you feel, completely unheard, completely like I'm holding on to this electric fence, and nobody can hear about it, and I gotta figure it all out." And then little by little, that around the table, every student athlete who basically were supposed to be the leaders on campus broke down. And what we sort of discovered in that moment after an hour or so was this was something that was too special to leave unpursued. The young people needed to learn how to talk to each other. And so you'll hear more about our organization, but it's really in line with the idea of Owen's quote, which is there being their strength and vulnerability. And until I learned to be vulnerable with peers, and as Izzy said, until she learned to let people in her life, we didn't find the relationships that we really needed to support us in our endeavors. So my message for you all, for going off to college is, it's obviously not going to be easy. You've heard a lot of things about college is the best 4 years of your life, and I do truly believe that, because it's the first time you're learning to discover who you really are. But what Izzy and I think, through our experience, have learned is you have to learn to have grace with yourself, and I have to learn that whatever happens to you in some way, shape, or form, it's meant to happen. It's meant to make you into the person you were supposed to be, and you don't have to do it alone. I think going through it alone, and us in the last, Izzy with her last fall, it broke my heart to watch her go through what she had to go through, and the only thing I could provide her is like, look, Izzy, I've been there, and I don't think I had good advice, but it gets better. And so I'm not saying that you all are going to have negative experience right when you go off to college, but what we can implore you is that you will find through that struggle the deep and meaningful relationships, the things about yourself, the relationship you have with yourself, which in some ways is the most important relationship you will have in your life. And that's what college will provide. It's an opportunity, it's a roadmap, and it's a gift. They say, when you pray for courage, you get a chance to be courageous, right? And so that's what we are hoping for you all as you grow into the change agents, that you approach college as, not only is my work on myself going to be for me, but it's going to make an impact in a community, in a world that sorely needs it. You guys can change lives. You guys can change people to the right and left of you and be a force for good, and for happiness, and for joy. And so I'm very proud of you all. Thank you all for being at an event like this. And yeah, that's it.